So I read a quote yesterday, and it said, "We all have two lives, and the second one begins when we realize we only have one." I wonder if there's a lot of people that are living as if they've got infinite time, but in reality, what I've been thinking about recently is death. And it's not just death that scares me, it's reaching the end and realizing I spent my whole time just preparing to live. So I think death anxiety is more common than we admit. I just think it wears different masks and it manifests differently for different people.
That would make sense. It's interesting as well. I'm going to jump straight in with cultural differences to do with death. In sort of the Western world, it's sort of a taboo topic, and you talk about death when it's a very poignant part of your life. So somebody has recently died. You don't really talk necessarily about upcoming and impending death, and death isn't something that's necessarily celebrated. It's typically mourned. Whereas I'm aware of a cultural difference between the West and Mexico.
Mexico.
In Mexico,
I like where you're going.
They have the is it the Festival of Death?
Day of the Dead.
Day of the Dead, and they dress up the lost people, and I believe they make them they position them as they would be as if they were still working, and you go and pay your respects to the dead through like doing transactions with them. I seem to remember watching a documentary on it.
So from my understanding, obviously Day of the Dead, Dia de los Muertos, is a multi-day celebration where you honor and remember deceased relatives with altars, special foods, joyful gatherings, visiting death as a natural part of life. It's about remembrance, not sadness. It's very much about celebrating life as it is about mourning, which I think, like you're saying, is a complete difference between the West, where we do mourn. It's all about sadness, it's all about grieving. Whereas, like you say, in Mexico, it's about celebrating their life, celebrating maybe their achievements and honoring them, I suppose, rather than being sad, as being grateful that you had time with them. And I wonder how many people do have that reflection that they're grateful for the time they spent with people, rather than sad they're gone. But it's likely easier to have that framing once you've maybe been through it and you've gone through the grieving process.
Yeah, and I think different things trigger different emotions in different people, and I think so much of it is influenced by the people around you, as is most things in life. So the people who are in Mexico will be like, their instinctive feeling when somebody dies will be to celebrate their life, whereas the instinctive feeling when somebody dies in the UK is like, sadness, sort of, there's a tension in the air. Don't really know what to say.
Yeah, it's maybe taboo in the West still, isn't it? We fear death. I think that's the underlining emotion behind it, is we do just fear death. And there's likely different beliefs that help you navigate that. With Christianity, you believe you go to heaven if you've accepted Jesus as your Lord and Savior before death. You'll be welcomed into heaven. And that might make the process easier for you. If you believe in reincarnation, you would like to live a good life and believe that you'd get reincarnated in a better scenario. But maybe if you have no belief system around death, maybe it can feel extremely daunting for you.
Yeah. I mean, I don't particularly have a belief system around death, but I like the idea of thinking that I'm like a biological thing, and that when I die, I'll like just go back into the earth. I like that idea. There's a thing, I think we may have spoken about it before, which is everything in life always returns to its environment. So if you have a plant, and the plant is living, it will be in an upright position most likely, and will have certain colours and whatever. But as soon as that plant dies, it sort of becomes the natural colours of its environment, and it sort of biodegrades. And humans are the same, like with temperature. Like, we are currently a different temperature to our surroundings, and therefore when we die, we return back to the baseline temperature of the Earth.
That's interesting. I've never thought about that.
It's cool.
I like that. Yeah, nice.
Helps
Good
me
insight.
because it's like, yeah, I'm part of the big cycle of this whole thing that we're doing.
So it helps you feel a little bit more at ease because you know you're part of something bigger.
Yeah, I'm part of the ecosystem,
Mm.
and at the moment I'm alive and probably a virus to it. And then when I die, I'll just be fed back into the earth.
So you see yourself as part of nature rather than apart from nature.
Yeah, that's really nice phrasing.
I like that, man. Yeah, okay. So that helps you navigate maybe your thoughts around death?
Yeah. Like,
Okay.
it takes away the fear. But also the other thing is it's the acknowledgement, like the two things that guarantee the life are death and taxes. Like, you're just going to die, so why be scared?
I've never heard that phrasing before.
Have you not?
No, of being part of this big oneness. Really like it, I have to say. Different to mine.
Yeah, I was going to say, what are your views?
So it's something I've thought more about recently, you know, especially as, you know, you hit the quarter-life crisis. I think everyone reflects on death slightly differently, but there's definitely been times recently where I'm starting to acknowledge that I feel like I'm getting older, and I'm okay with that. But it does make me reflect on life and how life is moving, and then understanding at some point I won't be here. You know, I'll never be this young again. You know, it's a grounding moment, but I think where I've landed on it, it's a lot more hippie. I suppose yours is it's not, it's a little bit more grounded. I feel like the soul inhabits, there's a soul in it inhabits this physical body. I believe that when this physical body dies, the soul will be joined up with the rest of the celestial beings, whatever they might be, whether that is God, whether that is any other form of religion, but I believe there's a soul inhabiting this body. You can even go as far as each soul has been given like a soul contract that they need to try and achieve or they need to work through. And then the argument is when you go down this level, which is if you've achieved your soul contract, you then will move into another being and have a new soul contract. But if you can't complete the contract you've been given, or you get faced with the same issue you might have done in a past life and you haven't been able to move past it, you'll keep being born into a similar scenario where you have to keep facing it. So it's interesting, but yeah, I definitely believe that there is a soul inhabiting the body, and once you pass away, the soul will go on. Different to when I was younger. I believed when you were younger, when I was younger, once you die, that's it. You know, you're in the ground. See you later. Off you go.
I do like the idea of heaven.
Mm-hmm.
I like that idea a lot. I just feel like whenever something feels like that's like ideal, it's usually too good to be true. That sort of phrasing. But I'm not opposed to it. If there is a heaven, I'm quite happy to go. You know, sounds like quite a nice place.
Depends on your definition of heaven. You know, I believe in our country the definition of heaven is a Christian heaven. You know, it's accepting God and Jesus, God as your Lord and Savior, and then you'll go to heaven.
Yeah.
As
long as they've got like a good office setup so I can make YouTube videos. That's the only thing I want out of heaven.
I don't think you'll be able to make YouTube videos when you're dead, sadly.
You might be able to make like, what would it be called? Heaven tube videos. Like everyone would want to be connected, wouldn't they?
Well, this is it. We don't know. We don't know what happens after we die. But I think death anxiety is more common than we admit. So a UK study commissioned by King's College in London reported that 47 of UK adults worry about a painful or undignified death, and 44% worry about the quality of end-of-life care. Do you worry about a painful or undignified death?
Yeah, I wouldn't like a painful death. I don't think many people would. But I wouldn't say I worry about it.
Yeah.
I think you can... It's very easy to worry about things, but it's back into the conversation of things are usually worse in your imagination than they are in reality. So it's like, I could spend the time worrying about every time I go for a walk I'm going to get ploughed by a car, but I'm not. So I'm not going to worry about that, because if it happens, I won't care. I'll be dead.
I land in the same boat as you. I don't want a painful death. Obviously, I don't think anyone does, but I don't worry about it. And it doesn't stop me from living my life or having experiences where there could be a scenario. Naturally, some degree of a little bit of stress is fine. I wouldn't go into an absurdly dangerous situation and be like, I'm fine, I don't fear this. But an undignified death, I've never thought about that.
That seems very sort of Old English, doesn't it?
It does, doesn't it?
Undignified. So that would be, I suppose, dying in a way that's not sort of peacefully. I
Yeah.
imagine. That would be like what would be an example of an undignified death? Sort of mid-riot?
Well, undignified normally sort of refers to like embarrassing, senseless, or like, yeah, normally ridiculous.
Like the guy that tried to break into the palace somewhere in the world. I can't remember which country it was. It wasn't Buckingham Palace, but it was like another royal establishment somewhere in the world.
Mm-hmm.
He fell off the roof and got spiked on the fence. That would be an undignified death.
Yes, that
Yeah,
would be an
there you go.
undignified death. Yes, exactly.
We found one.
Well
Ladies and
done.
gentlemen, we got him.
But most people don't walk around with like afraid of dying. They walk around afraid that their life doesn't mean what they hoped it would. So death anxiety is more common than we admit, but I think it wears different masks in the sense that very few people directly fear death. You know, walk around and go, oh my God, like I might get hit by a bus. Oh my God, I might fall out of the sky on this plane. Like they fear their wasted time, living the wrong life, being invisible, reaching life with regrets or the end of life with regret. So maybe it shows up as not living your life to the full extent.
Mm. Yeah, I would say that's more scary than the actual idea of death.
Mm.
It's like I want, and also maybe legacy as well. I think we'll maybe touch on that later. But like the lives that I've touched while I'm alive, what would they say about me? What would be said at my funeral? Those sorts of things.
Mm.
Not that I would care once I'm dead, but it's,
you care when you're alive, don't you?
yeah, it's very interesting. It's like because you lose all control. That's the other thing when you die. You have no control. You have no control over where you go. You have no control over anything. Yes, you can leave a will, but there's no guarantee that will be respected or any of that. So maybe it's also the fear of like I'm no longer in control. I don't know.
Yeah, might be a fear of if say there's people that depend on you, and if you pass away, how are those people going to cope? You know, so maybe there's an added stress there as well. If you're the primary breadwinner or you're a caregiver for someone, you worry about the impact that your death might have on them. Yeah, that's absolutely true. Ending life with regrets is probably a big one. Again, it's directly related to a fear of death, but it's probably hidden, or it hides the fear of death by getting to the end and worrying that maybe you didn't live the way you should have done.
Made different choices.
Yeah, like large population studies show that most adults think about death weekly, even if they wouldn't describe themselves as afraid of dying.
Think about it weekly.
Yeah, according to data-driven
Goodness.
research that we have here, it doesn't cite anything, which is a little annoying from my researcher. But yeah, do you think about death weekly? Do you think about death at all?
Once a month tops.
Once a month.
Yeah, maybe 7 or 8 times a year.
What is it that makes you think of it?
Probably doing something stupid. Like if I'm driving late at night and I'm really tired, like I think, oh, there could be like a risk of death here because I could just fall asleep while I'm driving or something. Or it's like if I'm on a plane in Prague, I fell asleep on the way back from Prague when I was in the middle of the air and was woken up by landing. I was like, Jesus, what's going on? And that I thought,
Might be it.
that might be it.
That's your time.
Yeah. Weirdly, I never thought when I was in hospital as a kid. I run it by King's College Hospital, so they do actually know their stuff. Although they do choose to keep me alive, so 6, 7.
None of that.
Yeah, I didn't fear death then, but it could just be childhood ignorance. Maybe.
Yeah, is that an age thing? Maybe?
Could be, but I think being ignorant to the meaning of death probably isn't a bad idea.
I mean, I can't remember how old I was, 28, 27, when I was in hospital with kidney failure. I didn't think about death. It was only when my brother went...
25.
25, I don't know how old I was.
2020, wasn't it? 2021?
Yeah, something like that, yeah. Shit, yeah, it was a while ago. Yeah, I didn't think about death then. It was only when my brother reminded me, being like, oh yeah, like, I'm messaging you because my brother's in hospital with kidney failure. I'm sorry for worrying that you could have died. I was like, oh yeah. Valid. Yeah, I wonder. Maybe it is only when you're faced with death you become aware of it.
Yeah. Which is sort of good, because if everyone was constantly, like, that was the first thing on their mind, it's like we'd lived in a very paranoid society.
But it would also depend on how it affected you, because I'm sure there's some people that live very paranoid of death around every corner. Whereas I'm sure there's some people that might feel quite liberated by thinking about death or constantly being reminded of it. Being like, you know what, if I am going to die, let's just live it. If nothing matters because you're all going to die, let's just get on with it.
Yeah.
You know, isn't it? It's Chris Williamson that said, in 3 generations' time, no one's going to remember your name.
Yeah.
And if that doesn't give you the motivation or the acceptance to just go and live a life that you want, what does?
Unless you're a royal, in which case you're usually remembered longer.
I can't tell you what royals are in power now.
Henry VIII, though, you know.
Yeah. That's only because he decided to chop off some heads.
Yeah. Well, there you go. He did something that gave him a legacy.
Well, okay, so what you're suggesting is create a legacy of chopping people's heads off.
No.
I suppose, yeah, we know who Jack the Ripper is. We never actually know who he is, but he left a legacy, didn't he?
Yeah, he did. It doesn't necessarily have to be mass murder, because I don't know who pushed the button to finally release the Hiroshima bomb. Like, he's not going to have a legacy. What he did will be remembered, but you won't, know his name. Hitler, he's pretty memorable. Stalin, he's pretty memorable. Yeah, there's quite a lot. So who are people who have done good that are memorable past lots of generations?
Martin Luther King.
Yeah. Malcolm X. Is another great one.
Yeah.
JFK, he's a political leader, so some people will think he did good, others will not.
Yeah, I think there's just as much clout in leaving a good legacy as there is a bad legacy. People will remember the same way. Naturally, as you know, as we talk about, humans probably have a negativity bias, and I think we're almost reinforced negative examples because if you don't learn from history, it's doomed to repeat itself.
Madame Curie.
Yeah.
Another one. Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
Another one. Sorry.
You're rattling them off now.
Yeah.
And Frank.
Jesus.
Jesus.
I genuinely, whether Christianity or not is made up, I genuinely believe there was a guy born called Jesus.
Yeah, I reckon there probably was too.
And I reckon he lived like that sort of life. The whole Mary falling pregnant without having, a male partner is a little questionable, maybe. Maybe it could have been the rules of the time, like it was very frowned upon to have a child out of wedlock. She was like, oh no, there was this great spirit that came to me. Maybe she was on LSD or something, who knows?
Who knows? Maybe we'll have to poke some holes in the Bible.
Well, it might be true.
Yeah, true.
I'm genuinely on the fence.
So I think when it comes to fear of death and the mask it can wear, adults likely feel like they're feeling behind in life, or maybe reporting that they're busy all the time but unsure why. Maybe these are subtle cues that people are afraid of death. Because if they're feeling like they're behind, that's implying there's somewhere they need to get to. It also implies there's a clear linear order for one to follow, which is...
Or it just implies there's definitely an end result. Doesn't necessarily mean the journey to
Do you feel behind in life?
Very much so.
Me too, but why?
Because I know what my potential is. And I panic daily that I'm not achieving that potential.
But isn't it interesting how we don't know what the future holds, but there could very well be a future will that's like, chill out, we get here. Yeah. Like, you've never been behind in life. So this feeling of behind in life...
But you won't get there unless I work.
Yeah, but you get the point I'm making. This feeling of behind in life is founded on... It must be founded on a fear of death, because how can you feel behind in life when ultimately there's no real causality, especially if you want to achieve an ineffable, unexplainable degree of success. Maybe if it's a little bit more linear, I want to have a house and a dog and 4 kids. Maybe that's a clear pathway, but maybe this feeling behind in life is founded in a fear of death because it is harder to explain. because
Yeah.
I feel behind in life
Mm.
in the sense that I feel like I should have more than I have. But then one
More
would argue,
of
like, maybe I should have a partner and a place and a consistent job and all these kind of things. But then you could argue, well, I've lived so many experiences which would put me ahead in life in other areas. So it's like, what does behind even mean? So maybe it is that behind is just feeling like death is getting closer.
could be. I think it's just we're cursed of really only being able to live one life, especially with all of our options. Like, I would love to live 100-year period where I just travel the world. I'd love to live 100-year period where I just focus on business. I'd love to live 100-year period where I'm like a workout gym rat.
Yeah.
I'd love, just all these different lives I'd love to live, but we're cursed because we have to live all of them at the same time.
Yeah.
And that's very difficult. And maybe it's balance. It could be paralysis of options.
Well, I've told you about the book Scythe before, haven't I? Which is a young adult book where, humans evolve past the point of death, and the only way that they can die is if these people that have become scythes, reapers effectively, kill them. Otherwise, you can live as long as you want, and then you can reset your age back to whatever age you want. And you just continue living.
That's dope.
However you like. Some people reset, so they just stay 25 the whole time. Some people live a full life and then reset. Everyone chooses to do it differently. But yeah, if that was the playing field that we lived in, you could spend one whole lifetime traveling. One whole lifetime learning into one particular subject. The next lifetime building businesses. The next time just connecting with as many people as possible. So you could live so many different lives, but the challenge I think we have here is, we do only live one life. So that idea, again, linking it back to feeling behind, is you're always going to feel behind in some regard because you have to choose something, some way to navigate life.
Yeah.
So if you've chosen to focus on traveling, likely your career is going to suffer, and vice versa.
Yeah.
Scary.
Sort of eats into the whole thing of if you got money, you can buy back your time.
Mm.
Like, I wonder if that's actually a net equal, because the amount of time it takes you to build the business to then be able to buy things that can buy you back your time, you could have just spent the time doing all the things that you wanted to do anyway.
Yeah.
I do wonder about that. Maybe not at like Jeff Bezos level where it's like millions of employees, because that's millions of years you're buying. But for most, like, half an hour for a cleaner every day. It's like, well, if you hadn't built the business, you could have just spent loads of time doing whatever you want to do.
So have you ever heard of terror management theory? So terror management theory explains how humans cope with the fear of inevitable death by adopting cultural worldviews like religion, patriotism, values, or striving for self-esteem. So with terror management theory, research shows reminders of mortality actually increase with like status seeking, achievement striving, fear of being ordinary. Do you think there's a way that you're engaging with terror management theory? Is there a way that you're maybe learning to cope with fear of death or the inevitable fear of death?
I think just being productive, making the most of every day. I think that's the only thing anyone can do. Like, spend however you see productivity in your life. Like, it's productive to spend time with family, with loved ones, with friends, building a business, educating yourself, reading a book you've always wanted to, just doing the things that satisfy you and make your life feel more whole.
Yeah, I like that. Maybe it is about trying to not keep yourself preoccupied, but find things you're passionate about, that when the inevitable death unfortunately comes, you've lived a life that you feel fulfilled with.
Yeah.
But I suppose,
you? Do you spend a lot of time fearing?
Not really, no, but it does kind of loop back into the, maybe I'm not afraid of death directly, I'm just afraid that I've never really lived the correct life. But then it's define the correct life.
Yeah, I think different people can have different markers on what they think a correct life is. I think that's the great thing about the life. And also the privilege of living in the Western world is like we're very free in terms of our decision making.
Mm. Yeah, we are. We are very blessed in that regard that we do have a lot more freedom. That freedom can also be a curse, but it's being grateful for the world you live rather than. I'm sure if you ask anyone in the West, would they want to change lives of someone that is less well off, that lives in Asia, Africa, Latin America, that has significant struggles, they'd say no. And then hopefully they'd be a little bit more grateful for the life they're living.
Yeah.
So if we admit that our anxiety is often just death in a different mask, so sometimes how we're choosing to navigate life or what we're choosing to occupy our time is maybe just a fear of death disguised, why does the realization that we're scared of death make us more defensive and rigid? So if we realize we're scared of death, why do we seize up? Why do we get a little bit more defensive?
Do you reckon it's stress? Could be stress. We try defending our ideas. We try feeling more, supported in with like correcting ourselves. We've made the correct decisions to this point. Or if we haven't made the correct decisions, we then start making the correct decisions.
The reason I ask it is because jumping on the back of that terror management theory, the research shows that when people look at mortality, it tends to make people respond by clinging harder to their worldview, to their identity, to their self-esteem buffers, to their religion. It makes they cling on, they grip harder into their beliefs. And like you say, maybe it is stress, maybe it's, well, I've realized that this is a real daunting, scary thing that could happen or will happen, so I need to double down on who I am, the way I'm living, what I've defined my life by. You know, if you're deeply religious, you likely then might find more peace in leaning further into religion when faced with more death in your life. I can't think of a better way to explain it, but you understand the point I'm making.
Maybe it's also you hold close the things that you most trust. It's like if you have faith in religion and that to you is truth, then you hold that close because that's a certainty. And with death, there's so much uncertainty around how it's going to happen, what happens afterwards. It's like you hold close the things that are reality to you.
I suppose that's like an armor. It's like a shield, isn't it? There's people putting up a barrier to defend themselves from the fear, from the reality. Yeah, maybe. So maybe the mind doesn't always meet death with that clarity and that acceptance. Maybe it meets it with more stubbornness and armor and shielding and defensiveness. Yeah, maybe we like the idea that the awareness of death would make people more compassionate, but in reality, when mortality becomes close and relevant, people often harden their beliefs, defend their identity more aggressively, and seek certainty instead of meaning. You know, the fear doesn't always soften us and allow us to connect more with people. It might actually make us tighter and more rigid. Yeah, it says on this, like when mortality becomes more present in our life, people become more defensive, not necessarily wiser. So there's experiments consistently show that when mortality reminders are increased, it means there's a direct correlation between us versus them thinking, ideological rigidity, moral superiority. People exposed to death cues are more likely to punish indifference, protect group identities, and reject nuance. Again, same study as cited earlier from University College of London.
Yeah. It's all very interesting, isn't it?
It is, man. It is. What do you think you would get more rigid on as death becomes more sort of relevant? Or do you think you would soften? Are you saying you would disagree with this point that I'm making here, which is people tend to become a bit more rigid? Why does the fear push people towards certainty instead of curiosity? So do you lean more towards the maybe embracing, the being open towards death, or would you get a little bit tighter?
I think if that question's like, if you only had a year to live, what would you change? I'd definitely do more travelling. I don't think I'd worry so much about building the businesses because they're just long-term plays. Not that I don't enjoy building businesses, but all the rewards I'm hoping to get one day from the businesses and being able to pass them on, they're all things that would then be thrown into question. So I just try and do as many of the things that I can do now. Like I've always wanted to learn to surf, so I'd probably go and learn to surf. And I'd probably do it in Australia because I could just fly there because I wouldn't have to justify holding on to the money to buy all the other things that I want. It's like, no. I'd probably do loads of like driving experience days.
Okay.
Driving lots of different cars. Just fill it full of experiences.
So you don't think you'd necessarily get more defensive?
No, maybe I'd be more impatient.
Okay.
Which, if that's even possible. I just wouldn't have time for anything that wasn't just me focused. I think maybe I'd become more selfish.
So maybe you are agreeing with it. Maybe it's saying you are prioritizing yourself and it's leaning into more of that moral, not necessarily moral superiority, but like I'm going to live it how I want to live. But I suppose there's no right way or wrong way to look at this because as death becomes more present for people in their life, whether it's death of a loved one or you're getting older, who is anyone to say you're living the right or the wrong way and processing it in the right way? I have no idea. I know this is a deep thought podcast, so maybe I should explore more of it, but I don't know how I would react as death becomes a little bit more apparent to me. I've been very blessed in the sense that death has not been part of my life, and I hope that stays that way.
So one idea that I've just had is, do you think there's a greater sense of immediacy in accomplishing everything you want to in your life, or start thinking more about all the other things you start thinking about the things you haven't got to do yet? You didn't get round to it yet. There's more of a priority shift.
Yeah, maybe there does become that priority shift. You start looking at what's really important to you and start making more time for that. Most people say it's family. A lot of people probably go towards experience bases rather than trying to just accumulate more wealth. Maybe it is. Some people prefer to pick up more wealth so they can pass on more money for their family, for their loved ones. Maybe. Yeah, it's interesting. So again, with this, the sort of when mortality becomes more present, people become more defensive, not necessarily wiser. Psychological research, primarily again through the terror management theory, supports the claim that mortality awareness often triggers defensive rather than wise or growth-orientated behaviors. So when people are subtly reminded of death, a state known as mortality salience, they frequently resort to distilled defenses to manage existential anxiety. So people will defend their worldview, participate in status symbol or materialism, an intolerance for dissent. And they might get more hostile and aggressive rather than seeking wisdom. They find that they've got to almost resort inwards a little bit more.
I guess you feel quite unbalanced. You don't have the same filter necessarily that you normally have. And I think that probably all stems back to the selfishness of, well, I only get one life to live.
So what's the difference then between knowing life is finite but digesting that and actually understanding it? Because we all know that life is finite and we all know that life is going to end. But what's the difference between knowing it and actually digesting it?
Don't think I've necessarily got the answers to that question. Do you have any? It's a really difficult one.
It is, isn't it? So let's maybe go. So life is finite. I think when you know, you just kind of put it to the back of your mind. It's something you're aware of, but it doesn't have any bearing on your life.
Yeah, let's deal with it later type.
Yeah. It's, well, I'm aware of that, but I don't need to think about it because it's not pressing. So when you digest it, you've processed it. Maybe that's through a lived experience or a traumatic experience, and you're more reminded of it. So once you've digested it, it then likely has more of an impact on your life. Because isn't it, people that have a near-death experience then often start living life like as much as they can.
Yeah.
Because they digested the fact that they could die.
Yeah. Maybe it sets you free in a way, digesting it. It's like you aren't influenced by everyone that's influenced you in your life so that you do the things that you do becomes less important because you have digested death and you know really what you're supposed to do at that point. It's almost like an awakening.
Maybe it's exactly what we started the podcast with, which is everyone's got two lives. And once you digest the truth, or you're reminded starkly of the truth that you've only got one, that's when your second life begins. Interesting. What I think is, excuse me, I got very excited there. What I think is also interesting is, like you say, the cultural differences when it comes to experiencing death. So a culture that avoids death doesn't remove the fear, it just removes the languages around it. Because if we've lived in a culture that sanitizes death and removes speech around it, we hide it in hospitals, we cover it with filters, we don't openly discuss it, we're removing the language of death, aren't we? So maybe we've removed the discussion around what actually gives our life meaning as well. Can you have a deep life if you refuse to accept it actually ends? So it's the language around death. Like, I don't know about you, I've never really spoken about it. It's never really talked about in my family.
Yeah.
People don't bring it up in everyday conversations.
No. Which is funny because it's the only thing we've all got in common.
Yeah, so true.
Like, it should be in everyone's conversation in theory because...
It's all in our wheelhouse.
Yeah. I guess it comes back to those cultural attachments of its negative thing. If you're going on a first date and the first thing you wanted to talk about was death, it's probably not a good sign. And same with friends, like, you don't want to be the friend that's like, oh, he's so doom and gloom, he's so glum constantly. He's always talking about death.
Yeah, there's a few different societies that actually celebrate death. Obviously, as you mentioned, there's Mexico. So, Dia de los Muertos. My shit Spanish.
Do they have the same thing in Spain, or is that just the Mexican culture?
No, Mexico. And obviously in New Orleans, there's jazz funerals to lead to joyous celebrations, and it's a lot more vibrant lifestyle. Got a few here, Bali, Indonesia. So there's a cremation ceremony. I can't pronounce that. Nagben. Colourful festive event with music and dancing. Japan, Obon, a Buddhist festival where families welcome ancestral spirits home with lanterns and dances. Again, there's another one in Indonesia, Madagascar, China, Nigeria. So there are other cultures that celebrate death rather than remove the language, because in the UK we remove the language. We don't talk about it. You know, you go into a funeral, oh, I'm really sorry. Straight away. It's an apology. It's something hard. It's something to be avoided. It's awkward. You know, someone goes, oh, and I can go into a funeral and go, oh, fuck, what do I say? So when a culture avoids talking about death, it doesn't remove the anxiety. It pushes it underground, where it can lead to chronic stress, comparison, perfectionism, fear of stillness. Because we can't speak about it directly, it gets expressed indirectly. So those cultures that openly talk about it or maybe celebrate, do you think they have a better quality of life or a better relationship with life?
I think so. I think because it teaches the younger generations, if you're celebrating like your great grandparents' death and that's like your first experience with death, Like, and it was a celebration, it was a party, that was good fun. I enjoyed the party. And maybe not processing the idea of like it was related to a death and what that really means. And then maybe as death comes closer and closer and you get older and older, like, oh, it's a celebration, but somebody died, but yeah, they had a great life. And just your associations with it are completely different.
The emotional attachment to it's already very different, like you say, because it's been shaped with different emotions. So I suppose a culture like a Western culture like the UK, if we avoid the community and the language around it, we're likely then going to fear endings, stillness, limits, not just dying itself. We're going to fear all those things because they're going to feel and have the same gravity as the death itself. Yeah, so maybe we do need to improve our languages around it. But how would you even do that?
It's so difficult, isn't it? Because it can't be a stark change. Because if you're the only person at the funeral wearing a Hawaiian shirt celebrating, like that's going to be, there's a clear cultural difference.
So I know my mother, I hope she won't pass away anytime soon, but I know when she passes, she wants to have a celebration of life, not a funeral. So she wants people to dress up in colourful clothes and have a dance and like enjoy the day rather than be sad, which is really sweet. So modern Western cultures talk about death less than any other previous era of the Western culture, despite having a longer life expectancy, better healthcare, more control over dying than ever before. But at the same time, anxiety disorders have sharply risen. Existential distress is increasingly common, whereas cultures with open death rituals often report lower death-related fear and greater acceptance of limits. Which is crazy to see the actual difference and the tangible results it's having. So what happens when fear has no language? When we remove the idea of discussing something that is causing us fear? Does it give us more or less power over it?
I think it's like ignoring the problem. If you don't talk about something, like if you've got some sort of childhood trauma and you never want to talk about it, everyone around you knows that, like, okay, well, they're just not dealing with that. But with death, where everyone doesn't talk about it, it's like, are we all just not dealing with it? Or is it something that actually we're pretty already come to terms with? And it's like, that's just part of life, that sort of thing. But then if 47% of people are actively scared about death, then you'd think, well, we're 53% of the way there, you know?
Or we're 47% of the way there.
Yeah, I wonder... Well, no, they're the people that are scared of death.
Yeah, halfway there to getting the rest of us scared.
Well, yeah. Yeah, it's a difficult one, isn't it?
So where does death anxiety go when it isn't acknowledged? If we're not actively talking about death, and we're not acknowledging the fear we have, where does it go? Because surely it's got to go somewhere.
I wonder how much it just plays out in our behaviours, like our day-to-day activities, the things that we decide to fill our time with. Or maybe it's just replaced with greater stresses in our lives that are more immediate, like I need to pay the rent this month.
Maybe that's why we fear just doing nothing. Maybe that's why we fear wasting days, because our days feel, underneath everything, they feel short. They feel finite rather than infinite. So when we have a day doing nothing, maybe that's where that annoyance at ourselves for not doing anything comes from.
It could also be, as life expectancy is increasing, like it becomes less and less of an imminent issue. I'll deal with that when I'm 60. I'll deal with that when I'm 70. I'll deal with that when I'm 80.
Yeah, I suppose as healthcare gets better as well, you don't have to think about it as readily. Maybe that's a bad thing.
Maybe. Or maybe it's a bit of freedom.
But the reason I say it could be a bad thing is we live in a culture where convenience is prioritized. You know, it's easier to get a cheap, unhealthy meal than it is to get a healthy meal. If death was more widely spoken about and the importance of prioritizing health and fitness and nutrition, would you see such an influx of people going to get fast food every weekend or like getting cheap microwave pizzas or whatever it might be, because that's easy. But if we had conversations about death and we understood, or maybe healthcare wasn't as advanced. I'm not saying healthcare being advanced is the issue. God, we're so blessed in that regard. It's absurd. But maybe if healthcare wasn't as good as it was, people would take better care of themselves, and it would be more of a reality. Again, a few generations ago, where maybe healthcare wasn't as good, you did take better care of yourself because you knew you had to.
Yeah, take an extra day of rest to make sure the cold doesn't kill you off.
Yeah, this is it. Eat a better meal rather than just going to get McDonald's.
I think you fix a lot of people's diets by not changing the price of fast food versus healthy food. But I don't know of a drive-through for healthy food, for a start. And if you made it so it was as inconvenient as it could possibly be, the price would stay the same, but the inconvenience of getting unhealthy food was so much more than just a night. Like, say you had a healthy food restaurant that had a nice drive-through for, like McDonald's has these days, or KFC or whatever, then you could keep the price the same, but people would have easier access.
Yeah, but I think it's because it's these hyper palatable foods, with high fat, sugar, salt, carb contents that reward the brain. The signals in your board.
I had McDonald's last night. I went through the drive-through. I had a large Big Mac meal and 2 cheeseburgers. Right, lovely meal. Really enjoyed it. But had there been, I didn't go there for any other reason other than convenience. So if next door, instead of a Costa to the McDonald's, if I had the choice between McDonald's or a healthy option, I would have gone for the healthy option. But because every healthy option requires me to get out my car into the cold, walk into Tesco's, grab the food, pay for it, come out, wait until I get home to eat it. Like, I'm not doing that. I will just go to the drive-thru. It's more convenient. It's more comfortable. So if somebody set up a fast food chain for healthy food, the problem is so difficult to do because.
But I do wonder if that is true, though, because again, these foods are designed to be hyper palatable and they will spike the reward centers in your brain. So you get rewarded for eating it, and it tells you to have more of it.
But if you had like pomegranate sprinkled over the top of your dinner, it's nice and sweet.
Yeah, I agree.
It's good.
You ever had Middle Eastern or Syrian food? Oh,
no.
So good. Like,
is there a Syrian restaurant here? I need to try it.
I don't think there is one where we are. London.
I'm not going. See how inconvenient that is.
I'm not suggesting it for one meal. Not going all year out the way just for one meal.
Yeah, but
The fear isn't death. It's a life that's never truly lived or felt or experienced. So sometimes we don't fear not existing. We fear reaching the end and realizing we had someone else's priorities at heart, or we didn't experience what we wanted to. So maybe this is why regret, not death, dominates all of end-of-life reflections. Because at that point, you're not fearing death when you're end of life. You likely have come to terms with it.
You've met it.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
You're just full of regret, or not, depending on how you've lived your life. So common end-of-life interviews repeatedly show top regrets include living accordance to others' expectations, working too much, not expressing feelings. Very few regret trying, many regret not acting. Very easy to reflect on and go, oh yeah, of course, obviously I should have just done more, acted, make wiser, bigger, bolder choices. Yeah, that's easy to say, but in the moment it feels very daunting.
It's coming to terms with the unknown, always.
How are you supposed to know you're living to someone else's expectations? That, to understand that, requires a lot of work, a lot of internal searching to know if you're looking at someone, if you're navigating your life through someone else's expectations. What do you think a wasted life means to people? If someone turned to you and went, I've wasted my life, what do you think they mean by that?
No sense of adventure. And that can be adventure in terms of travelling, but it can also be adventure in terms of career paths. It can be adventure in terms of having a family or not. It could be Anything, really. But I think you feel like you've wasted your life if you haven't done anything on your hypothetical bucket list.
Do you have a hypothetical bucket list or a real bucket list?
Yeah, got loads of things. Yeah, it's all written on a bucket. It's a literal bucket list.
So when you kick it, it's be cleared.
Kick the bucket. Yeah.
What's on your bucket list, if you don't mind sharing?
Yeah, buying a house in Cornwall. Mm-hmm. Ideally, Crantock. It's my favourite area. I want to live a life where I earn money and don't feel like I've had to work for it. Like YouTube, where I can work 14 hours a day and none of it feels like work. Mm-hmm. Like, that's dream for me. Definitely need a family. That's on my bucket list. At least 2 kids. I want to definitely go to Australia, definitely go to Bali, go around all 50 states of America.
All 50?
Yeah. I want to do a road trip. Just do it all in one.
Don't go to Kansas. Kansas sucks.
I like the idea of Kansas. There's a great YouTuber who lives there called Tanner Bronga.
You just need to literally look and you would have seen it. It's so flat. I've done a road trip across. We drove from Fort Collins in Colorado to the bottom of the Rocky Mountains, all the way through Colorado and Kansas. And it was the most boring part of the drive because it's just flat, straight road. You don't need to hit all 50, I'm telling you. Yeah, I've hit 25, 30.
I want that experience, though. Like, I've never seen, like, for all the eye can see, just flat.
I've driven on a road in the States where I've driven at 100 miles an hour and that horizon is not getting any closer. You could fall asleep for an hour, look, like wake up and it'd be exactly the same scenery.
That's crazy.
It's disgusting. It's mentally exhausting.
Yeah, sounds great. Yeah, I think that's pretty much all the places I want to go. So it's house in Cornwall, kids, have the job that generates income that I'm satisfied with, go to those certain places, and then just fill it with activities like learning to surf. I'd like to try wakeboarding and things like that as well. Yeah, and then just meeting loads of interesting people and talking to interesting people.
Nice, man.
And I feel like I'm building towards it.
Yeah, I was going to say, you're going to tick a few off in this year.
Ticking Bali off this year with
surfing.
What's it called? Founded the podcast so we can eventually start talking to even more interesting people than ourselves. And
is there such a thing?
It's going to be tough. So I can talk to the interesting people. Like, me and my girlfriend are actively saving up and looking at moving to Cornwall. And as soon as we move to Cornwall, we'll have kids. Or if we buy a place here, then we'll have kids. And then we'll move them over to Cornwall. And yeah, and then it's just very easy from that point. Like, all we've got to do in our lives is go to Australia and go around the States. Like, it's all achievable. It's all very much in my wheelhouse. Like, I've got the dream job.
If the podcast makes it, we can do a road trip around the US as we tour.
Be so good. Be so good. What's on your bucket list, if you don't mind me asking?
On my bucket
list? You've got to have a lot of stuff ticked off.
I do have a lot of stuff ticked off, yeah. The problem
what are some things that you have already ticked off? Might be a better question straight away.
Been to the States, done Camp America, become a snowboard instructor, taught in Japan. Those were, like, high up there. I would love to have taught in Canada, but I think I just changed that for done a longboard trip. That was on my bucket list. What else? Go to Costa Rica was on there. Go to Mexico was on there. Belize was on there. I didn't ever make it out there. I don't know why Belize was on there. It was a real interesting one. But obviously on there is Southeast Asia, which will be ticked off this year. Australia is very high, which will be ticked off this year. My bucket list is just constantly getting bigger. I'd love to do Machu Picchu. I'd like to do Annapurna. I'd like to do Base Camp. I'd like to do Kilimanjaro as well. 4 major hikes I'd like to do as well.
Nice.
I'd like to do a marathon. I'd like to do a half marathon.
You probably run a half marathon anyway, don't you?
I could probably run it now.
Just do that in the morning.
I could do it now as well if I wanted, yeah. But I was having a discussion with my friend Josh today about maybe I just need to do it before leaving. But yeah, we'll see. There's definitely things on there.
So it's all travel based pretty much?
No, but that's what I deem a bucket list to be more so, is like experience led. You know, I do want to have a partner. I do want to settle down. I do want to buy a house. I do want to get a dog. Having a dog is on there more than kids. I want a nice golden retriever. That's what I want. It'll be my best friend. It'll be a little venture dog. I'll buy a cap as well. Stick its ears through and it'll have a little cap on. We'll go adventure together.
Put it in a backpack.
Yep, exactly. Can't wait. Adventure dog. Honestly, I can't wait for that. That's better than kids. Can't put a hat on a kid. Can't put a kid in a backpack.
That's true. Well, you can when they're babies. They're like carry things.
Yeah, no. But yeah, I suppose I wonder how many people. So the idea of a wasted life. How many people can attach to that idea because they've judged their life by someone else's expectations or someone else's parameters? How many people would look back and say they've wasted the last few years? How many people have stayed at the same place? You know, if you think not much in your life has changed for the last few years, maybe it's a good opportunity to shake something up. Go somewhere new. Pick up a new job. You do only get one life, and if something doesn't feel maybe 100%, maybe it's sometimes worth shaking things up. If it's not a hell yes, it's a hell no.
The other acknowledgement that I've come to recently is that the UK, as places go, is pretty much up there with the most expensive places to live.
Correct.
So if you live in the Western world and you've always dreamed, like even if you go to, like, want to go and live in Australia, but you're putting it off because it's so costly to move over there. It's like, well...
You earn more over there.
Do you?
Wages are better out there.
So you can, as long as you can afford the trip out there, like life is over there. You know, you just, the same way as if you were to leave your job, you get another one here. Yeah. You just leave your job here and get a job over there. Like it can be that simple. It's just people put so many things in the way.
This is it. We put barriers to entry. We put other people's fears in the way. We put other people's expectations in the way. Sometimes you need to remove the external noise and the chatter and the judgments from other people and ask, what do I really want? What would I need to have achieved in this next year for me to deem it to be a success? What would I have liked to have achieved for my life to be moving in the right way? You know, sometimes we don't have to have the final picture. We just need to know what the next step is. Well, sometimes you know what the end picture is and you don't know what the next step is, and that's fine too. Sometimes you don't know anything. And if you don't know anything, that's fine too. But what I would suggest is start looking back as if you were 18 below. What would I have regretted not doing? You know, what would future Connor kick present Connor for not doing? So many things. So many things. Yeah, so a life that's never truly felt is something that people are scared of. You know, an opportunity to really just embrace, live, connect, laugh, love. Would people change the way they're living if they trusted they were already enough? So I think a lot of what reason people have this fear is they feel like they're not enough or the way they're living is not enough. So do you think people would change how they're living if they felt grounded and more comfortable in the decisions they've made?
Yeah, I think so. It's not an unreasonable jump, is it?
Do you think people then fear that if they don't have this subtle anxiety that they're not enough and they actually feel a little bit more comfortable with who they are, that they're just going to lose that edge?
That's me.
That's you. I don't think that's true, though.
Do you not?
No, because I don't think that's a sustainable fuel. I think if you're feeling like your motivation comes from fear of not being enough, chances are once you feel like you are more resolved in who you are, you'll have more motivation to keep pushing because you'll feel so much more confident in your ability.
Yeah, maybe. Maybe it's the confirmation you need.
Yeah, this is it. Because if no one's going to have your back, how is any external validation of achieving more going to validate that for you?
Yeah, that's true.
People don't fear that life ends. They fear that it never truly began. Do you think you're living?
Yeah. I'm doing, like, if you'd asked me when I was an accountant, I'd be like,
Yeah, valid.
I'm getting from day to day, if that's what you mean. But like now I feel like I'm truly living like the best life I can possibly be living at this time. It's like I'm doing, like when I was making YouTube videos when I was like 18, 19, doing my first reaction videos, I was like, God, if I could do this every day. But like, I hadn't even hit 1,000 subs at that point. I was like, if I could do this every day, that like, how awesome would that be? I'd feel so lucky. And now I've literally lived that day every day, and it's like I get paid for it. Not this month, but you know, some months I get paid for it, and it's really nice. You know, I just get to live as long as I have enough to where I can afford for the year. Like, I'm happy.
So you feel like you're living.
Yeah, it's great, and like opportunities to go to Bali and whatever. I don't have to ask a boss. Oh, please, sir, can you give me time off? Like, I don't have to do any of that. It's like,
why is your boss a dictator in this mindset?
All bosses are horrible people. I've never met a boss that I liked.
You're going to hire people and then you'll become a boss. Does that mean you're a dickhead?
Yes.
Facts.
No, the advert for the job will be, if you want to be pushed harder than you've ever been pushed, then this might be a place where you are accepted.
You're never going to have any applicants with that.
I don't know, because I feel like some people that is the job advert. Have you seen this thing Chris Williamson's done?
No.
He spoke about the Elon Musk advert for Twitter. Fired basically everyone from Twitter and then put out a job advert on his X account, which was like, if you want to work on the hardest problems humanity has ever faced and work harder than you've ever worked before and be pushed harder than you've ever been pushed before, apply now. He got loads of applicants, and they were all
Elon Musk.
they were all highly qualified ones, the ones that genuinely applied for genuine reasons.
Interesting.
Because for me, like, I like pushing myself really, really hard. And yes, I like doing it under the context of being self-employed. But like, my dad was employed all of his life, and that would have been the job advert for him. It's like, he loves to be pushed really, really hard. He likes the security of a job, but he loves working and being like the person who can really help make progress and solve difficult problems. So it's like, for some people, that is the thing. How do we get onto that?
Do you feel like you've lived? Are you living? Like, are you living life? Are you just waiting for it to start? I asked you that, and you said yes. You feel like you're living.
Yeah. What about you? Are you living?
I feel like I've lived.
Ooh, which implies you are now dead.
Yes, I am. No, I think I have lived, and I'm blessed to say that. I think I have lived. I've had such rich experiences. If I know I'm going to experience. For me, I think living is experiences. At the moment, I don't feel like I've got a lot of that, but I will counter myself with my own argument, which is, if I was to say be where I was a few months back, working for the job, but I had a partner and we were progressing towards something, I would say yes, I'm living, because I think living is shared connections and experiences. Those are the two ways I deem life to be living. Right now, yes, I am. I'm living. Yeah, I'm doing something I'm really passionate about with the podcast, and I really hope this becomes somewhere. And ultimately, if this does, the life that we live now ultimately won't change that much. So yes, it would still be living, but I'd hope that I had a partner I was growing with, and also opportunities to live experiences. So yes, I think I am, but I'm aware that there's opportunities for more life to be lived, which is cool.
Yeah. So you have space to grow into.
I do have space to grow into.
Yeah.
Just like my genes.
Short king.
If death wasn't taboo, what truths about life might finally be spoken? That's not a question to be answered. It's more just my...
Food for thought.
Yeah, like if death wasn't taboo, what truths about life like finally be spoken? That's the way I'm reflecting. But what have you been your takeaways? Anything you've really enjoyed about this one? I found this one quite difficult because talking about death is actually harder than I expected, because I think I've always been taught to shy away from it.
Yeah, well, also, it's not a conversation you practice.
No, very true.
It's with a lot of things, like, especially in our friendship group, talking about the holistic approaches to life is like quite a regular thing. And like, oh yeah, work hard, discipline, yeah, gratitude. Ah. Like, we talk about stuff all the time.
We do.
Death, I don't think has ever come up in our friendship group.
No, I'm going to bring it up.
Yeah, I think it'd be good. And maybe if we can persuade some of them to come on the podcast, hopefully we're big enough to hopefully have some sort of pull, and maybe the offer of lunch, yummy noodle, then we could bring it up then. We could do a death one. And yeah, maybe it's time to start circling back around to like the regret type podcasts and growth and...
But I think we could do them as like a big group where we can lead the discussion. But anyway, that's a conversation for off camera. Closing thought, word, picture.
Acceptance.
Oh, nice. Very good. Well done.
That was a good conversation.
It was very conversational.
It was.